ABC 10 News at 7 starts now.
Questions are being raised one day after San Diego police released video of an officer shooting a homeless man. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. That shooting happened last week near Horton Plaza, and police say the man had a knife. Tonight, advocates tell ABC 10 News reporter Adam Merkusen video from a police body camera of the incident is troubling and concerning.
This 6-minute video released by the San Diego Police Department shows the moments before, during, and after a police officer shot a man in downtown San Diego. The video initially shows someone on the street telling Officer Kelly Besker about a man who's allegedly holding a knife and acting crazy. A few minutes later, Besker meets the man, 69-year-old Stephen Wilson.
How you doing? San Diego Police.
Wilson's walking around the street corner. He's got food in his hands, his belongings scattered all over the ground.
I got some reports of you acting a little strange over here in possession of a knife.
I'm strange. I have a knife.
The officer asks Wilson to put the food down. He says no, he's hungry and keeps eating. Later, the officer asks about the belongings on the ground. Wilson says someone hid his stuff. ABC 10 News caught video of what appears to be Wilson on that same street corner earlier in the day. You can see what all of his stuff looked like just a few hours before the shooting. Now back to the officer video and the moments leading up to that shooting.
Get away from me.
Come on.
Don't touch me.
Oh, don't go this way.
Why did you make such a mess, sir?
He said somebody knocked his cart over. Hey, you got a knife in your back pocket. Do not grab that knife.
Police say Wilson grabbed a knife from his back pocket, brought it forward, and released it. They say the sound of the first gunshot can be heard at about the same time he released the grip on the knife.
What was there, a taser gun? I didn't pull it on you.
It's very troubling and concerning.
Francine Maxwell is the president of the San Diego chapter of the NAACP. Directly after the shooting, they'd called for the release of the body-worn camera.
He told you that he was hungry. So where was the urgency? Where was the threat? Why didn't we step back and call the PERT team? Why didn't we call the K-9 unit?
According to the San Diego Police Department, Officer Besker was assigned to the Neighborhood Policing Division, and that division is responsible for the quality of life issues such as homelessness. An advocate for people experiencing homelessness also questioned the officer's decision to use a gun.
The police officer just should have backed off a little bit and recognized what the situation was.
ABC 10 News showed the video to retired police officer Kevin LaChapelle. He says in a split-second moment, it's hard for an officer to determine the intent of a person, and the video doesn't always tell the whole story.
There are witness statements from people and all sorts of other things, also the history of the person.
Adam Merkusen, ABC 10 News.
The San Diego County District Attorney's Office will investigate and decide if Officer Besker faces any criminal liability.
California will start setting aside 40% of all vaccine doses for communities that have been hit hardest by COVID-19. Many of those neighborhoods are located in Los Angeles and the Central Valley. These areas are considered most vulnerable according to the state's Healthy Places Index. It takes into account factors such as access to health care, education levels, and household incomes. Governor Gavin Newsom says he will loosen tier restrictions once 2 million people have been vaccinated in these areas. And so far, the state says it's vaccinated about 1.6 million people in those areas. The county reported more than 500 new cases today. There have been more than 261,000 infections. That's just locally since the pandemic began. The county also says 17 more people died since yesterday.
The coronavirus variants have alarmed scientists because of their ability to evade antibodies. But a new study from San Diego researchers is offering encouraging news. Our ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl is going in depth to explain what it means for people who have received the vaccine or have been sick with COVID.
We've heard a lot about antibodies in the fight against COVID-19. They're really important, and variants like the one first found in South Africa can evade many of the antibodies produced by the leading vaccines. But new research from the La Jolla Institute for Immunology shows that variant doesn't escape T cells. Neither does B117, the UK variant, or P1, the Brazil variant, or Cal-20C, the California variant.
We looked at their T cells and asked to their T cells, do they recognize equally well the original sequence and these variants? And the answer is that they do.
Dr. Alessandro Setti and his colleagues took the genetic code from all 4 leading variants and rebuilt them in the lab in fragments. Then they tested the fragments against T cells from people who had gotten the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. They also tested T cells in people who had recovered from the original version of COVID, and they found the same result.
They essentially recognize just as well.
Dr. Christian Ramers of Family Health Centers of San Diego was not involved with the study.
I think it's great news that the T cell responses that we're seeing from vaccines and from COVID survivors look like they can do a pretty darn good job against these variants. It reassures a lot of us that are very worried about when you look at purely an antibody response.
Okay, so what does this really mean? Antibodies, which look like the letter Y, can attach to a virus and disable it before the virus enters our cells, preventing someone from getting sick in the first place. T cells, on the other hand, only kick in once the virus has infiltrated and set up shop.
They recognize infected cells because infected cells shred little pieces of a virus and they present it on their surface. And so the T cells patrol the body, and if they see a cell that has this fragment of a virus on top, they go and kill it.
In other words, T cells won't stop you from getting infected with a variant. You might still get sick, but there's growing evidence from LJI and others suggesting T cells can keep you from getting severely sick.
If they were to encounter a variant, even if the antibody response would be providing less of a protection against infection, once infected, it's possible that the T cells may modulate the disease severity.
This T cell data may help explain why Johnson & Johnson's vaccine was nearly just as effective against severe disease in South Africa as it was in the U.S., even though the South Africa variant brought down its overall effectiveness. Experts say more studies are needed to figure out just how protective T cells are, but it's another good reason to get vaccinated fast. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
And in just the last 15 minutes, the county announced it will administer its 1 millionth dose of the vaccine on Friday.
Human smuggling is suspected in the crash that killed more than a dozen people in Imperial County this week. A local immigrants' rights group told ABC 10 News reporter Jennifer Kastner they questioned Border Patrol's statement that there wasn't a pursuit of the SUV.
That local group told me that it's received tips about the crash and it's working to vet that information. San Diego immigrants' rights activists are calling on members of the public to come forward if they saw anything leading up to the collision that killed 13 people during a suspected human smuggling attempt in Imperial County on Tuesday.
Lives were lost. It was a tremendous tragedy.
Andrea Guerrero with Alliance San Diego said that although border agents deny any involvement in what led to the crash, there are still questions about whether there was a chase.
Border Patrol's word is not enough.
Border agents confirmed Thursday that they were not in pursuit of the SUV.
We are hearing community concerns that the version of events that Border Patrol has shared are not what actually happened, but we don't have any confirmed reports at this time.
Officials report that the victims were migrants being smuggled across the border and that the SUV had been stripped of nearly all its seats. 25 people were inside when it was struck by a big rig. Investigators say the SUV was one of two seen on surveillance video going through a hole in the border fence that morning. The other SUV reportedly caught fire, but those who were inside made it out safely and were detained. Last week, border agents say that a driver sped off and collided with a Border Patrol vehicle during a human smuggling attempt in Jamul. 10 Mexican nationals were reportedly found in the SUV. Also last week, border agents say this RAV4 struck a median while the driver was fleeing from agents, who later arrested 14 undocumented immigrants during a human smuggling attempt. CHP said Thursday that it's still investigating how Tuesday's crash happened. Part of a statement Wednesday from Border Patrol's El Centro sector chief reads, "Human smugglers have proven time and again that they have little regard for human life. Those who may be contemplating crossing the border illegally should pause to think of the dangers that all too often end in tragedy."
If anyone has direct knowledge of the incident, please contact CHP or Alliance San Diego.
We asked border agents for a response about their involvement in chases. We also asked for updated numbers on human smuggling attempts. We're waiting to hear back. Jennifer Kastner, ABC 10 News.
And this afternoon, CHP released the identities of 12 people who survived the crash. 7 were Mexican nationals. 2 were from Guatemala. 3 others are of unknown origin. The youngest was a 15-year-old girl. Investigators have not released the identities of those killed. Border Patrol agents rescued 10 undocumented migrants from severe weather last night. Around 11:15, agents received a call from Mexican officials. They said 10 people crossed the border illegally and were lost in the rain and fog. Mexican officials gave agents the group's last known coordinates. They went to that area. They found 7 men and 3 women. Everyone in the group was okay. They were taken to a nearby Border Patrol station for processing.